No! No!
So I apologize. I really wanted to actually stream around the weekend, around the Saturday night main event. I was on NBC for WWE. I had a shocking finish and some football, but sadly, illness took control of that. Besides that, we are nearing the end of the NFL regular season. Most positions are set in stone for certain NFL teams, especially wrapped around the AFC wild card. That the seventh seed is more clinched up, while we still have over a handheld of at least five some odd teams with a 5-9 record from the New Orleans Saints, shockingly still battling for a spot in the playoff race. While the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming out of a 40-17 record, a win against the LA Chargers, and that was after a close field goal off their third seeded field goal kicker closing out a field goal to win against to lose against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't even know how to even cap that off. First of all, that's already massive unluckiness, but this was just borderline brilliant football by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. An outstanding passing game. Mike Evans with another 200-yard receiving night, and that's coming out of Devontae Adams. Quiet, 2 targets, no yards around the first half. Went capped over 198 with 2 receiving touchdowns and a big win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 32-25. We're almost going to cap out majority of this week involving Monday Night Football doubleheader between the Las Vegas Raiders that are 2-11, trying to possibly purposely lose for a lottery pick. No shame. Oh, you guys will proudly become losers just to become progressive losers when you get your first overall pick with the 6-7 Atlanta Falcons, or the Falcons, choking out their division lead. Kirk Cousins now a game below 500, below the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, trying to snuff out a very competitive NFC South. With the Chicago Bears, after starting 4-2, limited playoffs, losing like the last 7 games after opening a 4-2 record, facing off against the Minnesota Vikings in their second to last meeting against one another on the road, pissed down their legs. Even though I feel like Caleb Williams has had an exceptional season for a rookie over that standard, people would expect a bit some odd more when people expected them to get 5 wins just over last season when they had a full year of Matt Eberflus after he got fired. And it looks like we got a consolation prize involving an offensive rookie of the year performance over Jaden Daniels after he shows up. And this is after getting pimp slapped at overtime against the Minnesota Vikings by 30-27 in overtime. Choking a game against the Detroit Lions over a poor play call. Roma Dunze's bullshit spamming of the triangle button against the Packers. Losing to the Patriots, only getting only 10 points over 2 straight games to the Cardinals and the Patriots, getting shut out by 3. No, that was the Hail Mary play to Roma Dunze, because that was around October 27th. No, that was the Hail Mary. That was the Hail Mary catch. And when they got gobsmacked by the 49ers. And that will be possibly for another video. Their end of the road trip ends against the Minnesota Vikings. Well, they'll probably be 4-10 and trying to snuff their way to a wild card spot, knowing they got contending playoff teams out of the Detroit Lions, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Green Bay Packers. I can understand the increase of alcohol in Chicago has increased by quintuple digits at this point of time. And also Deontay Johnson has been not mutually released, but he's been not able to cut into practice involved in the Baltimore Ravens, knowing his play-in time. He's been rapidly declining coming into the field, being a primary target. Same thing happened when he was over in Pittsburgh, even though he had statistical margins over in Pittsburgh. And I'm trying to understand, why isn't he playing at all? that's a bit concerning, knowing his the receiving core has been exceptional this season, going 4 straight touchdown receptions, touchdown passes by Lamar Jackson to push them now 9-5. Still struggling to keep a consistency after after Pittsburgh lost to Philadelphia the same night. And Lamar Jackson having an MVP year, 14 straight games, only 3 interceptions, over 34 passing touchdowns over his career, with a brilliant completion rating of 68.1. He's been exceptional. With only 4 games remaining in the regular season, he could possibly go for a 4,000 yard MVP year. Don't know how that's going to compare over to Josh Allen. Derrick Henry with another All-Pro season. Had an 87 long this season, 1,400 rushing yards over his 13-yard carries. He had nearly the longest streak in NFL history in rushing until I think that kind of fell around week 9. And he's been exceptional. But he hasn't capped off the versatility over only 127 receiving yards as much as Saquon Barkley. So people would probably level that up over his scrimmage yards, and he's still able, over the bare minimum of his touches, over like getting a minimum 70, and that only squanders Lamar by 40. Only a 30-yard margin over a dual threat MVP level quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And this is with Diontae Johnson only getting 1 start out of his NFL season, got only 1 catch over 5 carries, and this is after getting traded. Diontae Johnson, I feel like he possibly has a maturity problem. He was a fringe one-time Pro Bowler. After coming from the Carolina Panthers and his tenure he had with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he had pretty reasonable stats. 28 years old, you think the prime production over his career. But majority of the time when he rotates in, it just feels like he's a non-factor. I don't know what's going to be the answer here, when his best performance was when he was a Carolina Panther. And he came over a 36-22 win against the Raiders. I don't think he even logged a touchdown over this year. So I don't even know what's going to be the strategy, knowing he's coming out of his career production when he was a Pittsburgh Steeler, trying to be a primary option. He can barely produce over this system. Anything that gets him away from making Quentin Johnston stats, I don't know if that means getting him out and he's less productive than Nelson Aguilar. And he's not even the primary target with Isaiah Likely, mixed up with Mark Andrews, making a duo option. Then you got Rashad Bateman, that's been an exceptional deep threat option, even though he only got 650 yards receiving this year, with Zay Flowers coming in. I think this is his sophomore season. Potential Pro Bowler with over 12 starts. Got around 4 touchdowns, 916 yards, and the bare minimum of more of a gain of just a red zone threat around the edge, and he's a massive speedster. So that's a majority of their game planning. Because if it's not going to be them, their running game will still rotate out with Justice Hill after getting rid of J.K. Dobbins. So Henry gets majority over in the touches. This is a prime running back. You don't really even see running backs like this that don't get rotated around as a second string past the age of 30 because of the market for running backs are a bit more slim to none because of injury risk in the cap space to even produce that much consistency in such an age where you're suspected to rapidly decline. And that usually happens, I think, at the age of 26, 27. kind of getting up there, but Henry is still shown to be an all-pro running back that you don't even see put up MVP statistical numbers since Adrian Peterson era. There were a lot of great running backs around that time period. That I think at least half, fans around my age could remember half of the best running backs around that time. Even Chris Johnson was putting out outstanding numbers, getting a 2,000 back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons when he was on the Tennessee Titans. And that was another outstanding running back that the Titans had and wasted. But I don't know who's going to pull the thing, man. I'm getting fraudulence over majority of the I would say majority of the AFC West, except possibly the Chiefs because of Black Magic. The Denver Broncos has been astounding to watch. Just knowing how highly rated they are over as a defensive scheming and just aggressive offense. And we already got like 4 division leaders for the AFC. Out of the Chiefs that were champions just 2 weeks ago, Bills looking absolutely astounding, even outplaying the best in the NFC, Detroit Lions. That was an insane game to watch. That was an offensive throttle. Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they got outplayed by the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Texans, after poor play calling, underutilizing that timeout, just poor confidence by Coach Daniels. Buccaneers can slot home with a division lead to take over the 4th final seed around becoming division champions of the NFC South. They just need to find a reign of consistency that they kind of had lost since the early part of the season, even though Baker Mayfield's having a terrific year. Baker Mayfield has been just a highlight reel when it comes to just if y'all like your very aggressive, risk it for the biscuit, passing quarterbacks that can take the punishment around the deep ball. I don't think he's over in the MVP running, but when it comes to a redemption year to make a competent team out of the NFC South, Baker Mayfield has been doing that. He's got an astounding piece of rotation when it comes to Levante David staying in form. They can clutch out and pretty much blitz a lot of good players. Vita Vea is a good bang for your buck nose tackle that has played offensive line sometimes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans still showing that reign of consistency. Still to this day, 11 starts straight, and he's having an outstanding year. Over 749 yards off 9 touchdowns, leading the team in receiving with Cade Otton being a good first down threat. Rashad White and Bucky Irvin being a good running back duo. They will crush any team. Chris Godwin, they can be giant killers when they need to, the Buccaneers. So I would lay flat that they could succeed because they could be a second round trip if they can push over the wild card because of the new formatting in the playoffs. So even a second seed can get upsetted so early into the playoffs. And speaking of which, the Seattle are still in the hunt with Arizona, Atlanta, San Francisco that now fall 2 games below 500, New York with a massive bump over their win probability after beating the Carolina Panthers, and the Saints are just 2 games away, and they probably gave up around that season after their game against Washington that came in close, very close, but they pushed over a 2-point conversion over when they were just a field goal away to push it over to overtime, but I guess they were trying to just falsify their chances so they can try again next year. So I don't know if that was purposeful elimination from playoffs, and I guess that depends on what Chicago's going to do, even though it doesn't really amount to much, doesn't it? Because we know they're probably going to lose to Minnesota, and that's really not going to impact over in the seeding. Because they already have the division. While we're kind of written in stone who's pushed over in the bubble after Houston beat Miami. So it's now a tougher 2-game lock, but there's still 3 games left into the NFL season for the Miami Dolphins to try to hint on some consistency for once. We know Tua Tagovailoa was out for like a majority of the year. So we gotta see what's gonna be any reign of momentum. Cincinnati had a convincing win, very convincing win, to now push them still in the playoff hunt. Now 2 games below 500. They can clean up. They can still clean themselves up in their Thursday night football game against their final game against the Browns. And then they got the Denver Broncos. They were a tough defensive follow-through, and Bo Nix has been astounding. Then they got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though they got outplayed on the road, especially in January weather in Pittsburgh, we already know the struggles for Cincinnati to keep a reign of consistency, especially on the road. They have lost to Baltimore, LA, Cleveland before. They have not looked good at all. They haven't even beat Pittsburgh over their 44-38 shootout against them back in Week 13. And that was 2 weeks ago. Familiarity will come in soon, and these are big wins against Dallas. They shut out Tennessee convincingly 37-22 after like one player like stupidly after a near pick 6 already fell in had one step into the end zone, already let go of the ball to make that a 44. That was just dumb. That was just dummy levels right there. And possibly it's just a 2-legged race for a wild card trip for at least the majority of the teams. Indianapolis can clutch out, but I can see them just faltering out of elimination, especially with their injuries. With DeForest Buckner, Michael Pittman, they lose a bit of offense, and their quarterback their quarterback situation not really altering any type of development, especially with Anthony Richardson basically redeeming himself over a 5-5 start over to the season after thinking Joe Flacco was just going to magically turn into Cleveland Browns Joe Flacco for the last remaining couple games of the season. And they have been peak inconsistency. They went 2 for 2, won 2 straight against Tennessee and Miami. They lost 3 straight until they finally buckled back and won 2 out of their last 3 games after their bye week. And now they follow through the final 4 games of the season, losing to Tampa Bay. They can squander back in the race. Against Tennessee, they got New York on the road at MetLife, and then they finish off against Jacksonville. This is a more winnable situation to squeeze over in the playoffs. But knowing how piss poor offensively they could spark offense, even how Cincinnati has struggled to put up over on the defensive side of the ball, they are still a competent offense on the passing game, especially if Burrow is hurt. If Burrow is out, then that is something to kill for that 7th seed spot in playoffs. While majority is not playoff implicated for Monday night. Let's get it real. Except for Atlanta, that need a 7-7 to still clutch over, at least to squeeze where Arizona is at for that final wildcard spot, even though we don't even know who the NFC East champions are, because it's nearly a 2-legged race, except the Rams could snag in after Seattle were holding on the division lead for a while. And this is after the Rams literally sparked over production after Puka Nacua came back from injury. And that's practically all I got for today. I hope you guys are preparing well. I know I will for the holidays. And I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for comment, subscribe for the DST show. That's it for me.